Hello and welcome to Cooking the Books with Heather. Today we're going to be working once again out of the Sam Jones book, Whole Hog BBQ, and we're going to be making a pickin cake. So if you're not from Eastern North Carolina, you might not know what this is, but it's generally a yellow cake with mandarin oranges and pineapple. And my husband says he's always seen it as a sheet cake, but he says it's always a three-layer or a layer cake. But we're going to make it the way, he says to make it, as we do on this channel. And it's just always a thing, especially in the summer, and at Pig Pickins. That's why it's called a pickin cake. So this is a cake made like all of the Southern cooks that I know make cake, which means we're going to be using a box cake mix and doctoring it up. So we're starting with 2 boxes of yellow cake mix. So I'm just going to dump these in my bowl. I have chosen my next to largest bowl. Hopefully that'll be fine. And I deliberately chose the cake mix that was not the butter recipe, because he says to use vegetable oil as directed on the package, the amounts. So mine calls for eggs, oil, and also water, which his recipe doesn't call for. So I'm not sure if I'm going to need all the water or use all the water, but it does say eggs, oil, and of course the mandarin oranges. So I'm going to go ahead and put the oil in here. And since I'm mixing this by hand, this should be fine. And he says to lightly beat these eggs. So I think I'm going to do that. Just to make them mix a little bit easier, because sometimes it's hard to get the yolks broken up when you're doing this all together. So I'm going to crack all of my eggs into this measuring cup. And I'm going to get a fork and just sort of make sure all the yolks are broken and everything's sort of mixed together. Not great, but a little bit. So that's a good start. And now I'm going to pour this in here. Oh, I missed one. We're going to use these can of mandarin oranges with the juice. So I'm going to start with maybe half of the water for both of the packages, just to see if I'm going to need all of it. Once I add that juice, I just don't want it to be too thin. And he doesn't call for water at all in the recipe, but he does say to mix it according to the package directions. And like I said, my package says to use water. And you can use a mixer here. The package directions say that's okay. I just decided I was going to do it by hand. All right, we're going to add this. He says to fold this in with its juices after you've mixed everything according to the package directions. I'm going to mix this in and see what I think about the thickness of our cake batter. I had one for you. I think that is fine. I've definitely had thicker cake batters, and I'm not going to use all of the water as instructed in my package directions. And I'm pretty sure that is how most Southerners would do it too. because a lot of things happen by feel or by what you think looks right. So I'm gonna clean up a little bit over here. Dump this out because I don't think we need it. And we're gonna deal with our pans in just a second. So now I have 3 pans. These are supposed to be greased and floured. I took the southern way out since I happen to have it on hand, and I used my baking spray with flour. So that should be good. Should be absolutely fine here. And now I'm supposed to split this evenly between these 3 pans. And I might have some left over, which is not very helpful, but mostly you don't fill cake pans above like 2/3 of the way. So I'm gonna see where we are, see if I can use it all or not, or if I shouldn't. Yeah, it looks like we're gonna be fine with using all of this with these 3 pans. I'm not sure, mine might be a 10-inch pans. I have measured them previously, but I don't remember. But they're what I have 3 of that are the same. So that's what we're using. He says to use 9-inch, whatever. Put this away. So if like me, you are not good at judging which ones, if they're the same or not, what I do is just set my scale to grams usually and weigh them. So this one is over 1,000. Try to get them approximately the same. This one is a little over 900. And this one is a little over 900. So both of these need a little more. So let's try to get everything to be a little under 1,000. I think we'll be about right there. As I spill some. There we go. It's about 975-ish. Which may be too much. $9.50. All right, let's see how much this is. I'm gonna find some out. All right. One's a little less by about 25 grams, but I don't think that'll make a huge difference. So, all right, I'm gonna just wipe down the edges a bit. And these are going to go in the oven. It's heated to 350 degrees for, he says 25 to 35 minutes. My recipe says 24 to 29. So I'll check them at about 25 minutes or until a toothpick inserted into the center comes out clean. So usually when a cake is done, the edges kind of start pulling away from the sides. It looks a little golden on top, and definitely a toothpick comes out clean. So we're going to get these all, I think I can fit them all on one level in my oven. If not, if you can't, you really need to rotate them. So about halfway through, you'll switch the top to the bottom and the bottom to the top, and just to make sure they cook evenly. But we'll be back in about half an hour, and I'll show you what they look like when they're done. And I was wrong. I could not fit all of them on one level. So I put 2 in the back on this one level above and 1 underneath, and I'll rotate those in about 15 minutes. These have been in the oven for 25 minutes and they seem done. The toothpick came out clean. You can see they're kind of pulling away from the edges. I had a bit of a disaster with the other one because cakes rise and it touched the bottom of the rack on top of it, which I've now moved. But anyway, I'm going to check that one real soon, but we're going to let these cool for 5 minutes in the pan, and then we're going to turn them out onto a rack to cool absolutely completely before we ice them. So we will see you back when it's time to make the icing. Our cakes are completely cool. I went and ran an errand, so it's been probably at least 30 minutes, maybe more like an hour. I don't know. I wasn't gone that long. But it's time to make the icing for our pickin cake. And I would like to, well, my husband would like to register a complaint. He does not like Cool Whip. We generally prefer real whipped cream, but we're going to do it like the recipe says, because that's what we do here. And this is probably what most people would actually use. So the base of our icing is Cool Whip. He calls for the smaller, 2 of the smaller containers, but the larger container is exactly the same size as 2 small ones. So this should be fine. I'm just going to dump it all into this very large bowl. Now this was in the freezer until before I started making the cakes, so it's still a little frozen in the middle. I put it in the refrigerator before I started making the cakes, so it's only been there for a couple hours at this point, but that's okay. It will, now that we've sort of spread it out and put it in this metal bowl, it will warm up a little bit more quickly. I'm gonna move this out of the way. And then the other parts of this recipe is instant vanilla pudding mix. Again, 2 boxes, 2 of these small boxes. Actually, I think one of the larger ones would have been more exactly what he calls for. He says 3-ounce boxes. These are 3.4, but we're going to go ahead and use all of both of them. All right. All right, so we're going to mix this together. I don't know if I will need a mixer or if this should mix fine by itself. It's definitely looking way less white than the picture, but that's okay. I mean, Cool Whip is already pretty stable, but the pudding will probably stabilize it even more and make it sweeter. All right, so that is mixed up pretty well, and now we're going to stir in pineapple. This is crushed pineapple. My store did not have the size can that he said. It had a slightly larger can. I'm just going to use all of it. I don't care. And we did strain that, take out the liquid, and it is going to loosen. There is still liquid in it, and it's going to loosen this up a bit. And there we have it. All right, so now all we have to do is put this together. I don't know how this would work with actual whipped cream. You would definitely have to stabilize it some way. But anyway, I'm going to set this aside and I'm going to use this later. I don't know what for. Cocktail, pineapple, orange juice, who knows? We do have orange juice. Now, I have a cake plate, but it's much easier to put a layer cake in my refrigerator on just a regular plate, and my layers will fit on here. I've done this before. Stabilize it a little bit. There we go. And here's gonna be my first layer. Talked about how I had a bit of an issue, and that was this one. You can kind of see the top was messed up, but it's perfectly fine because we're gonna put that down on the bottom. There we go. And then I'm going to spread it with some icing. Get my offset spatula. There we go. I'm gonna go with a little less than a third, just by eye here, because I think we want more on top. That's what the picture looks like anyway. But we're, this is gonna be a very rustic kind of cake. We do not have to frost the sides. The picture does not have frosted sides, and I'm gonna take that as a win. I think that's probably enough. Another layer here. I'm going to try to move that much easier. Get this centered. Looks good to me. And then put some more on here. It's definitely stiffening up a bit since it loosened up when we added the pineapple with a little bit of juice, but now it's stiffening up for sure, which is what that pudding will do, honestly. I'm gonna try to make this a relatively stable base. It's gonna be a little lopsided, but sometimes if you do it right, you know, your cakes are not all straight, you can offset them correctly. The last layer I think is a little taller on this side, so I'm going to put that on the side that needs a little more height. We're gonna call that good, and I'm just going to put the rest up here on top. I think I'm done. It does look very rustic, but this is going to go in the refrigerator for later. But he does say it's ideally served at room temperature. So I like my cake cold generally, but we'll see. We'll see if we take it out long enough that it will warm up to room temperature. I doubt it, but I gotta go make room for this in my refrigerator, and I'll let you know what we think of it in just a minute. On this episode of Cooking the Books with Heather, you watched me make a pickin cake from Sam Jones's Whole Hog BBQ cookbook. This is a super easy cake. It is made from boxed cake mix, and you throw in some other things and bake it. Throw some things together for the frosting, and you don't even have to cover it all up. Super easy. And this is, I mean, when you're cooking a whole hog and you want an easy dessert because you've babied a whole hog for hours and hours, this is great. And I am not a huge fan anymore of Cool Whip. I used to love it, but when I've tried it lately, it's not been, you know, my favorite thing at all. But this, I think the vanilla pudding that you add, the pudding mix that you add, and the pineapple sort of cuts down the flavors that I don't like in Cool Whip. So it was actually pretty good. It was a pretty light frosting. The cake itself was pretty heavy. I think it was about more than 6 pounds of cake. When I lifted it, I decided it was really heavy and I needed to weigh it. So it was about 6 pounds cake. So it will feed a lot of people. He says it's 8 to 12 servings. Those are very large servings if you are feeding, if you're only feeding 8 to 12 people. So I think it was probably more like 16 at least. Anyway, yeah, if you're looking to try this kind of cake, the one thing that I will say is I don't know if my can of mandarin oranges was very light on the oranges and heavy on the liquid, but it wasn't soup. The cake didn't taste a lot like oranges to me. The pineapple was very prevalent in the frosting, but it just didn't taste very much like mandarin oranges. So I might try that a little bit differently next time. I did use all of the juice like you're supposed to, and sort of cut down on my water because my cake mix called for that. If you don't like orange, you probably still like this cake. It's a very subtle orange flavor, and there aren't a ton of the pieces in there. But super easy. And if you've tried this, let me know in the comments down below. If you've enjoyed watching me make this, please give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and come back and watch me make something else next week.